Hey, everybody. We're live here, USCfootball.com. TV, we're going to try to do these every week. Looks like Thursday at noon is a good time slot. And I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCfootball.com. And over on the other camera, we got Keely Orr. Follow on Twitter.
Hello.
At Keely is my name.
That is my name.
And Shotgun Spratling. Follow on Twitter at ShotgunSPR. What's up, Shotgun?
I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to drop some knowledge bombs.
He's ready to talk for a lot.
Yeah, I got some water this week, so I keep my voice, keep my throat
hydrated, ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
So we're in the USCfootball.com studios.
It's ready to go.
We have this little different setup than last week. We were trying to do some multiple cameras and better microphones and stuff, and we ended up just using the old-fashioned smartphone. So hopefully it's worked. So let us know if you have any questions or comments. If you put those in the Facebook comment feed line, and Keely's going to be monitoring those and checking them out, and then we'll do our best to answer all of those questions. If you don't know much about the site, USCfootball.com, we've been doing this will be our 22nd football season, which is kind of crazy. Doing podcasts like crazy too. So I've done 5 podcasts this week, and then now a Facebook Live thing. So should be interesting. And these guys are getting ready to do a podcast too. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Breaking the news.
So I don't know if they have a name. We'll wait all that stuff. But they're going to have like the Shotgun and Keely show, or the Keely and Shotgun. Who gets? I don't know. There's all kinds of controversy going on.
Main billing. Yeah, we've been fighting over that.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So that'll be good. So that'll be coming up a little later too. So we'll have a lot of podcasts, a lot of content coming up, and of course it's because USC and Stanford are playing this weekend, and a real big game. Maybe we'll go Shotgun first. What do you any kind of initial thoughts? The Trojans and the Stanford Cardinals.
As most of the defenders said yesterday, it's all about stopping the run, and it's all about tackling. And that's something they didn't do very well last week, so we'll see how much improvement they do this week. I asked some of the guys, did you guys change anything with the tackling? No, not really. Just focused on it a little bit more. Just did a couple more drills of maybe things that they may have spaced out in camp on 2 days they might have done in 1 day this week. So I think tackling is going to be huge. Obviously, anytime you play Stanford, they're going to attack you on the ground first and then try to hit those tight ends and try to get some long balls deep. But first, it's all about stopping the run against them.
And I apologize if I look over this way a little bit because they're sitting actually over here, so kind of the natural thing. But my camera's straight ahead, so I'll try to look there. Keely, what about you? You've been out to practice. I know you're taking vigorous notes, everything you see.
Take notes, yeah. I'm excited to see just what happens with the offense now, whether T and Clay kind of stick with that whole balance that they want, throwing the ball, running the ball. I think they should just go with the hot hand. We saw Ronald Jones and Stephen Carr. They're really good. So maybe go with them a little bit more. The offense is still kind of a little bit rough, if you will. I mean, it seems like there's kind of like an effort going in to try and get that balance and maybe just like ride with the hot hand a little bit more just until things get clicking with the wide receivers. But I just think it's funny how every year it seems to come down to the Stanford game that people put too much expectations into it. Like, oh, this will show whether the team is good or not. And then it never actually ends up that way. USC lost last year and then ends up going to the Rose Bowl. So it's just funny how the expectations always are on the Stanford game.
Yeah.
Stanford does so many different things that sometimes it's hard to gauge, how the USC team will play against other teams off of the Stanford game.
Yeah, they're their own beast.
Yeah, because sometimes you beat Stanford and then you don't look good against some of the spread teams. Cam Smith said yesterday, I was like, how unique is it? He's like, well, it's unique now. He's more of a 20-year ago linebacker who lines up and is ready to hit somebody. That's not necessarily what the Pac-12 is nowadays. Yeah. But Stanford still brings that, and that's what makes them difficult to prepare for, especially if you're coming off a short week or something like some teams have had in the past. It's because you got to go from, all right, we got 4 wide receivers out here with Washington State. They're going to throw it every single play to, all right, we got 4 tight ends right here in the middle. We got to, they're going to run it every play. How do we got to stop that? So it's a little bit different mindset, and it's something that you don't necessarily prepare for each week like you do maybe with some of the nickel concepts and some of the spread concepts that you do against a lot of the other teams in the Pac-12.
I think Stanford could be the most important game and maybe the least important game on the schedule, which is funny because, like, if USC only loses to Stanford and they go and win off the Pac-12, they'll still go to the playoff and everything. It doesn't really matter. But it is, to me, it's like this game that you have to kind of get over that hump. Like, if you do want to be considered a playoff team and you do want to be considered, hey, USC's back, everyone wants to jump on the USC hype train when they see something good. I think this is the key game. You got to win. If you can't come out and win this one, yeah, you could go on and win the rest of your games and make the playoff. But this is the kind of one to kind of show, hey, USC's back. You can't just let Stanford kind of bowl you over every year, and they've been doing that. And they're going to use 4 different tight ends. They're going to run the football. Someone tweeted out something interesting over the last 4 games that USC's played Stanford. Stanford's only punted 7 times. Wow. Got that right? And USC punted like 15 times. So, I mean, less than 2 punts per game. So if Stanford is able to control the ball like that, it's hard to say, hey, USC's back and they're ready to contend for national championships. You got to be able to handle Stanford in that case, I would think.
I wonder if that includes the Leonard Williams game where, they were on USC's side the entire game basically and still lost. So, sometimes the stats don't tell everything, but, the way Stanford's able to control the ball, USC has to take advantage of their opportunities on offense. There were some, just looking through, I haven't made it through the entire game, taking notes on it yet of the Western Michigan game, but just looking in the first quarter, there were some opportunities USC had on offense that they didn't necessarily connect. One, the Sam Darnold scramble where he jukes 2 guys out. It looks great on the highlight film. If he just looks up before he jukes the first guy, the first tackler that came up on him was guarding Cedric Ware. If he just kind of plops it over that guy to Cedric Ware, there's no one there for at least a 20-yard game, possibly a 50 to 60-yard game, and that's an opportunity that that just didn't happen. It was there, and sometimes the quarterback or the runner is looking, their eyes go down for the defender, they don't see the next guy. There's a couple opportunities like that USC did not capitalize on, which is something you have to do against Stanford. You can't have a false start to start a drive right after a TV timeout and push you back, and then all of a sudden you can't get going on the drive. And that was the same drive there, where suddenly it's a 3 and out. You give Stanford the ball back, you don't get it back for 6 or 7 minutes maybe. That's the thing with Stanford is your drives are matter that much more because they're that limited when they get their offense rolling. And it's still to be determined how well USC's defense can stop them and get them off the field. If they can get them off the field, it changes the whole complexion. If you can get a couple 3 and outs rather than even a 6 or 7, 8 play drive and you cause you force a punt. If you can get some 3 and outs, you get more rest and you get the offense back on, they can get a little bit more flow going. So both sides are gonna depend on each other this game.
It makes you wonder how much of that is like first game hiccups, if you will, because Sam Darnold admitted he had first game jitters. He did mention, hey, this was my first season opener as a starter.
Yeah. You don't think about that, but that's true.
Yeah, even though he's this vet in fans' eyes of oh, he can do it, he's so accustomed to things. This was his first time walking into the Coliseum as a starter, as the first game, as a captain, all these new things. And he also said he had the whole offseason to think about this first game, and he said he felt weird. He actually he felt weird during the game. So I think getting some of those first jitters out, those first throws out, are good for him. And whether he'll see those Cedric Ware things and when he's more in the groove, I think we'll see.
And a lot of guys that they used hadn't played much before. Yeah. We talked about Tyler Vaughn's last week about how consistent he's been and how he catches everything. He drops a 3rd down pass.
Yeah.
And granted, it wasn't an easy catch. He's right on the sideline. He's trying to get his foot down as well. But that's a catch that we kind of expect him to make. Jalen Green has been Mr. Consistency throughout the fall, and 3rd down play, right out of his hands and drops it. So, a lot of guys that hadn't got a ton of playing time previously, and a lot of freshmen playing, there were some mistakes, and maybe it does play into that a lot. Especially on special teams, there's a ton of freshmen played, and then you saw some special teams errors. So, it'd be interesting to see which special teams we see. Are we going to see the Stanford from last year with 8 men on the field for an extra point, or are we going to see the team towards the end of the last year that was able to make some plays, the team like in Notre Dame that had multiple returns for touchdowns?
I think the balance, Keely, you brought this up earlier, the balance on offense, it really felt to me, the beginning of the game, obviously Ronald Jones goes ballistic and they score that first touchdown. Then they have 3 straight 3 and outs, and it was mostly, in the passing game at that point. The passing numbers were skewed, especially in the second quarter. It felt like the passing game wasn't working, so instead of going with what was working, they're trying to get it going. It was more like you're trying to manufacture something where, hey, the running game's working. If you keep running the football, then you'll be able to throw some passes. You don't have to kind of force it there. So will it truly be this sort of balance? I like the hot hand idea. I don't know what we're going to see, but I think they're going to have to against Stanford. You got to, if something's working, use it. If it's, you saw what Josh Rosen and UCLA did when they got Caleb Wilson going, just, hey, keep throwing it to him. It's fine. He's not going to get tired. If Ronald Jones is running crazy, or Stephen Carr, or if it's all Deontay Burnett, just throw it to Deontay Burnett. You know, like, I know they want to try to mix it around, but if no one else is getting separation, you got to do with what's working. And
if Ronald Jones is dominating like he did on that first drive, put him in the second drive. Put him in the third drive. I mean, Cedric Ware took all the snaps the second drive. The third drive, Rojo's back on the field. He ran the first carry 6 yards. They passed in the next 2 downs.
Yeah.
Then the fourth drive, which is another 3 and out, it was Stephen Carr's drive, so he wasn't in again. So 2 out of the 4 drives he's not in on. Two out of the 3 that were bad he's not in on, and he's dominating that first drive, and then he runs for 6 yards on his 1 carry the other drive. Give him the ball.
Yeah.
And then even when you had Stephen Carr in, it was 3rd and 2. I think Stephen Carr, they picked up 8 yards, I think, on a swing pass to Stephen Carr on 2nd down. 3rd and 2, let's throw the ball. No, give the ball to Stephen Carr, let him run. Go. I mean, the offensive line was doing the touchdown run that Ronald Jones had, the first score, 16-yard run. He got a glimpse or a glancing blow off the bottom of his calf, I think. That's all he got touched. It was great blocking up front. Nico Fala pulled. They had brought an extra blitzer, so Nico Fala picked up and kind of held up 2 guys at once, and then Toa came back and picked up the second guy, so they walled off that part. You had Daniel Imatobrebe in front of him, and he just kind of pushed a guy in, opened up that edge. Ron Jones makes the first guy miss. He takes a bad angle. Rojo's too fast for him. Gets around. And Deontay Burnett and Jalen Green just had like a complete wall sealed off where nobody was getting through. Jalen Green just locked up the corner, and Ron Jones walks into the end zone. That's 5 guys right there. 5 guys creating good blocks in a row to get Ronald Jones into the end zone. And then you kind of went away from him. You wanted to throw it a little bit more, and you wanted to put somebody up. Get the ball to Rojo if he's running it. And he's running through tackle after tackle. I mean, he was just beast mode on that first drive. I was so upset. I'm like, where'd he go? What happened?
It's funny when that happened, last year when, he wasn't the starter, and I got to get him the ball. And now he's the starter, and you're still like, got to get him the ball more. Got to get him the ball more. So we'll see if they do. I
actually interviewed Dylan McCullough this week, and I asked him, like, do you subscribe to the same theory as T and Clay, like, balance? And he was like, yeah, I definitely agree. To have a good running game, you have to have balance. You have to throw the ball so they can't key into it. But he kind of alluded to that, like, he just wants to feed Rojo and feed the hot hand. But at the same time, he's a new coach. He's a first-year coach. He can't just, like, waltz into USC and be like, this is how I want to do it, So I think there's a little bit of, like, he wants that feed Rojo the ball, but he kind of is the caller, which he is.
I mean, Ronald Jones got the Yak Daddy Award.
Yeah.
Dylan McCullough, gave out some awards to his running backs after, I think on Monday on Twitter, and one of them is the Yak Daddy Award, which is yards after contact, and I think he had over 127. I'm just
it was insane.
oddballing it off the top of my head. I mean, the first run, there were literally no one blocked for him. In the scheme of it, it actually Western Michigan slanted away from where the run was going. So there were 3 defensive linemen that ran themselves out of the play. The defensive end came up and went way too far, so no one had to block him. Rojo got so quickly to the second level that no one actually had a block for him. And the run was, 29 yards without a single block. Down the field, the only person that actually helped him was Chuma actually turned and spun him and threw him after he broke free of the second tackle. That was the only assistance he got from anybody else in the play. Now, I'm not saying that anybody did bad on the play. It's just the way that the defense was lined up. There was no one actually there to block, and Tyler Petit kind of let the defensive end go wide of him, and that forced that big gaping hole that he had. He gets to the second level, runs over, I think, a safety, and then runs through a linebacker that had caught up. It was just a beast run without any help.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So Keely's monitoring the. Did I say that wrong again before? To monitor our Facebook feed. And just a quick update. Shotgun has a chair this week. Last week he was sitting on a step stool, so I upgraded him to a chair. I only have 2 chairs. We don't usually have a lot of people in here, so we had 2 chairs. But are people commenting?
Yes.
Is there, they can hear us okay?
I think so, because people are saying, yes, run, Forrest, run. So I think they agree with the Rojo running. Wendy Lopes Dunn says, hey, Shotgun, 3 exclamation points.
Oh, Wendy.
Does he have an admirer there?
Wendy's a good friend.
Oh.
Rob says, hoping this game will be a positive distraction as I sit and wait for Irma. Good luck in Irma. Hope.
Are you down?
safe.
Oh, yeah. To
Rob?
everyone down in.
Well, get to safety and at least to where you got cable.
Yeah. The cable doesn't go. Okay, let's start
Safety and
with
cable.
A.T. Simmons III. Oh, he was shady last week, so let's see this shady question.
Shady A.T.
Yeah, he was throwing some shade. Why can't USC develop a culture of toughness like SEC schools, Ohio State, Clemson, and other top programs? Do you think it's because the coaches have coached so kids don't get injured for so long? They still coach that way in the offseason, question mark.
Well, like Texas A&M, they showed a lot of toughness with their game against UCLA, right? Like, they're an SEC school. No,
And Tennessee showed a lot of toughness when they were getting run over for, 400 yards on the ground?
It's the branding. It just means more.
Okay, I kind of brought this up with Dan Weber, and I'll bring it up to you two, like a little bit of a theory. That maybe some of it is the no bye week thing, and they weren't doing as much tackling. I didn't really agree with the fact that they didn't have the starting defense play at all in the last scrimmage, which is kind of weird. But this team got better last year when games were going on, not because of practices. And it's almost like you need that, real hitting and stuff going on. They seem to just get better as more and more games are played. We haven't had any, this was only one game. I don't know if you guys subscribe to that theory that they talk about practice being like harder than games. I'm not really seeing that. I think it was definitely more evident in the Pete Carroll years, but any kind of thoughts on that this team kind of needs more games under their belt to get better?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't agree with what you said, not playing the first team defense at all for the last scrimmage. I think defense is a type of thing where you need to just keep doing it. Maybe they thought too much about, like you said, the bye week and just giving them a rest. I don't know. But at the same time, hearing from the players and Clancy yesterday, they had no tape. They kind of overthought what the game plan was going to be for Western Michigan. Cam Smith was like, it didn't go our way. We didn't really know what was happening. Clancy said that 80% of what they practiced, they weren't going to use come game time.
Doesn't seem like a good plan.
He said that before the game as well. He told me that last week.
So, and then you have Jordan Iosefa there who, is not Cam Smith. He's not as experienced, and Porter admitted to that. There's just a difference when you're playing with Cam Smith, who they've grown up with. So I think you're seeing all those factors. Whether or not that will actually change come Stanford, we'll see. But I think for now, that's what you were seeing.
The toughness thing, you look at Clemson. Clemson is a team that was known for Clemsoning, which meant they weren't tough. They would always find a way to blow games 3 years ago. All of a sudden, you have two really good years, and now you're a tough team. USC during the heyday of Pete Carroll was known as the toughest team. It's all about what you've done the last year or two, I guess. The only team that has consistently been tough is Alabama because of all the five-star guys they have. It makes it a lot easier. One of the things I think they did is without having a bye week, and also because of the fact that how important some of those starters are. We saw how important Cam Smith is. And, there were plays where USC was looking in different directions and the ball was being snapped.
Yeah.
There was the first time that Western Michigan went no huddle or went up tempo, there was not a single USC person with their hand on the ground. There was no defensive lineman that had their hand on the ground at all. They showed some things that USC wasn't expecting. However, I think part of the reason why they didn't go as hard is because you saw how quickly guys can get injured. Rojo runs into Isaiah Polamau and separates his shoulder. He's done for the year now. And he's a guy that they thought would definitely participate on special teams and potentially work his way in the rotation like some of the other freshmen may be able to do this season. So I think there's still a little bit of depth concerns, especially with some key positions that maybe they were like, let's pull back a little bit. And, if they can take the lessons learned from the Western Michigan game and tackle better, the rugby style tackling, a lot of times your rugby style tackle, you try to wrap up and twist as you're falling to the ground. A lot of times they twisted and slid right off the players. Now maybe that's because of how hot it was and how sweaty everyone was, or whatever it may be. That may have played a small factor in it. Not giving that as an excuse, but there were a lot of different factors that went into how poor they performed, and yet still won by 18 points. And came up with a big play on defense at the end of the game when they needed to seal the game as well.
All right. Do we have another question?
Yeah, we do. Let's see. How does Stanford's O-line this year compare to years past where they dominated up front? Are they better, worse, the same?
I didn't get a chance to watch the Stanford-Rice game. Still haven't been able to find it on ESPN3. I looked for it a couple of days ago again. So I'll defer a little bit to Ryan here. I know they played Foster Sarrell. I think they played Walker Little as well, 2 true freshmen. I saw both those guys in the Army All-American game. They're playing alongside. They were good enough that they moved Austin Jackson into guard the coaches did at that event. And, those two guys, and it was supposed to be the best West offensive line that they've seen in 5 or 6 years, partially because of those two guys. And then Jay Tufele still stood out, as one of the best players there because he dominated some of the interior linemen. So that tells you how good he was then and, how things can change in 6 months or 8 months. But those two guys I thought were really good. There's a reason why they were 2 of the top 3 or 4 linemen in the country. And the fact that that they can bring those guys in, and I don't think they're starting right now. I think they're rotating in, but I think that it just shows that they again have depth on that offensive line once more.
Yeah, they looked really. I only watched the first half of the Rice game because that was the night of the fight, and it was pretty much over by then. How much you could tell from that, but. Talking to R.J. Abadia from the bootleg too, he felt a little like what you said, getting the younger players in there. It wasn't a bad thing that there's some of the starters that maybe shouldn't be he wasn't as confident with that he feel confident with the younger guys. But I think there still is a rotation. This is a really talented. If you look up and down the line, highly recruited guys up and down. They're always well coached. They develop as they get older. But I think you might see a couple of those younger guys playing quite a bit against USC. It is still a very formidable front, and you got Bryce Love running behind it. They got a bunch of tight ends. Not a lot. I mean, Trent Irwin's a receiver. We saw some. I don't think there's, a ton of receivers that you've kind of heard of and stuff. But they can run through 4 different tight ends. Colby Parkinson, who we saw at the opening, had 2 touchdowns in that game as his first game as a true freshman, similar to what Stephen Carr did. So it's definitely going to be a formidable offense. They played better than I thought they would against Rice. They played them the end of last year, beat them, but it was just kind of They beat them in Australia, just beat them like a drum.
Yeah. Law of Inertia, who has Isaac Newton as their profile picture, says Stanford running game better than Western Michigan? ?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think Western Michigan gives you a greater variance in the backs that they used. I think Bellamy was more of a scat back, could get outside and do some things, whereas Bogan in the middle was able to just bust through there with some heavy yards. I think Bryce Love can get outside and do some of the things that Bellamy did. I don't think that he's the same type of interior runner that Bogan was. However, I think what they teach well at Stanford, and maybe it was just how good Christian McCaffrey was, is to be patient. That's one of the things that just amazed me the most about Christian McCaffrey is that he would put his hand on the back of one of the offensive linemen, and even if there was nothing there, he would fall forward for 3 yards because he would just wait, and then he'd just kind of go off to one side, whichever side the defender wasn't at, and then pick up a couple yards. It never seemed like he was losing yards, and that's a product of the offensive line as well. I think Bryce Love can do similar things there. He can be patient and follow the blocks and wait until a little bit of a crease opens up and then pick up 4 yards every time, rather than trying to do too much and losing yards on some plays.
Yeah, they. I would say. It's going to be better just because they have a better overall offense. I think Western Michigan's run game was very good, but they didn't really have a passing threat, and USC still had problems with that. I think with Keller Christ, you're going to have more of a balanced attack. They have, definitely deadly tight ends and a couple of receivers that you're going to have to worry about. Love I think is probably a better back than both those guys, although it was kind of like a thunder and lightning thing. They, like Shotgun said, bring you a little different feel there. And I forget the backup running back at Stanford, his name, but he had a couple touchdowns in the Rice game too. So I think Stanford can bring a few different people at you. I would probably rank Stanford. Just overall, it's not like Western Michigan has a bad, obviously it's not a bad running game. They have a great running scheme. I know at least one of their offensive linemen's pegged to be a first-round draft pick. Stanford's going to have a couple, at least, first-round draft picks on the offensive line, and I think Bryce Love will be a star too. So I would go the edge of Stanford, but both are very good.
We can't get into this too much, but Tom Payson asked, did the D-line make adjustments in practice?
They have done some different things. Now, Granted, that is partially due to what they're going to see from Stanford.
Yeah.
Last year against Stanford, they used base more than they used nickel, the only game that they did that. But they also used a jumbo package where they brought in an extra defensive lineman and 2 extra linebackers, Iosefa and Houston at the time. So I'm sure we'll see some form of a jumbo package as well. They also used dime last year. The strangest thing to me in that Stanford game, they used dime, and it was the only time in the season they used it, and it was against Stanford.
Right.
And that just shows you how many different personnel groupings. And Clay said, "What? They were six different personnel groupings in the first 10 plays against Rice." That's what you'll see from Stanford. They'll switch in a lot of guys. That's why the tempo's so slow. They sub on almost every play. They bring in something different, look at you. And sometimes they'll run the same play 4 different times in 4 different looks. Now, it might be 2 tights, 2 wides, and it's the same off-tackle play, whatever it may be. But they change stuff up a lot and make you think on defense, which is one of the things that's difficult with them is because they always talk about, hey, we want to play, we don't want to think, we want to react. And sometimes you're looking at, okay, this is my key or is this my key? They do so many different things that the week leading up is very, very important for the team that's their opposition is working on everything that they can throw at you because there's so much different stuff.
Yeah, I think Pac-12 Network's re-showing some of the Stanford USC games where they were in the 60-minute ones. But look at the defensive front. It's definitely different, like Shotgun said, against Stanford last year than what they ran against other teams. So kind of expect the same sort of thing.
Gabriel asks, what is that? Is that a mattress pad back there? No, it is not. It's the soundproofing, correct?
Yeah. So there's soundproofing there. So because I do a lot of podcasting and stuff in here. And actually one of the guys that used to work at Scout, he kind of designed studios and stuff. So he brought that in and we installed all that. Didn't go all the way around. I installed some other stuff on the other walls so you can kind of see. Yeah, it kind of goes around. Yeah,
it would be much cooler if it was Velcro mattress padding.
Stick on it.
You just lay on the side of the wall.
That'd be cool.
That would be kind of fun. It's still a work in progress. I've been in here like a year and a half, and I'm still like, I just put like these bookshelves in here like recently, and I had to get stuff out of the house, and so working on it, And we want to do more videos and stuff in here, so we're trying to do more of that. But we've done a crap load of podcasts, and hopefully we can do some of these broadcasting things too.
Is that metric units or
crap load? Yes, that's the metric. Yeah.
Christian asks, Helton decided to go with experience over talent early on again. This time at the receiver position. Who could be the Sam Darnold of the receivers this season?
Tyler Vaughn.
I think Joseph Lewis is going to start getting more reps.
Well, okay, hold on. Just to follow up on that, a lot of people are asking, why haven't we seen Joseph Lewis? Where's Joseph Lewis?
Joseph Lewis played last game. He played 3 drives. He was on the final drive. I mean, people want to say, he doesn't use the freshman at all. Well, Stephen Carr is the one that had the 52-yard run, and the guy blocking in front of him was Joseph Lewis. So, I mean, they're getting rotated in. It's not like last season. And I think you'll see them rotate in more and more as the season progresses, and they are more comfortable themselves. I think that's a natural progression that you'll see. I think you guys can stop freaking out a little bit about the receivers, maybe some other positions you can freak out about. But at that position in particular, because, I don't think it's like last year where there's a solid 1 and 2. I don't think there's solid Juju and Darius. No. And we would love to get Daquan and Isaac sometime, but Darius and Juju aren't coming off the field. So I think, you saw when Daquan needed to step in in the UCLA game, he was huge. And I think it would have been great to have him here this year. I think he could be a guy that would have an opportunity to start right away and be a legit number 1 weapon or 1A beside Deontay Burnett. However, that's not necessarily the case. And I think Stephen Mitchell did a really good job in the game. I think Jalen Green did not have his best game, and I think he can still play better. And I think he can earn opportunities back. However, I think going into this week, you're going to start seeing Joseph Lewis more and more. He's just a dude.
Yeah.
He's a dude. I mean, he got more reps in practice this week. He was behind Jalen Green in the receiver lines. Like, he's getting more love, so.
Yeah, he was on special teams as well, and, he did a pretty good job on those. First time ever covering a kick, he told me. But he was out there and, took on a couple wedge times, taking on the wedge. So I think he's a guy that's only going to continue to progress more and more. I'm interested to see if Josh Amorbebe gets in the mix or not.
He didn't play at all, right? Or
he did not
very
play.
much. Yeah.
He had an interesting practicing week this week, too. The coaches seem kind of down on him, so it's interesting how that plays out.
I mean, T talked about it a little bit. I wasn't over to hear it. I kind of heard in passing. But he talked a little bit about why he did not play and didn't get him in the rotation. I mean, the rotation kind of shrunk because the game was tighter than maybe they wanted to potentially expand. But, again, they also did have Tyler Vaughn's in the next to last drive when they scored a touchdown on Rojo's long run. And on the last drive, Joseph Lewis was in. So, they did mix those guys in. It wasn't just, hey, they got one series and they were out. They did actually continue to play more and more as the game progressed.
I mean, I feel like on social media, a lot of people are like, free the wide receivers. Like, they're, like, keeping them behind. But I think it's more like they trust Jalen Green, Stephen Mitchell for what they can do and blocking, like you said, versus these new guys are still, there's some trust that needs to be built. Yeah. So I don't necessarily think it's like a DeQuan Hampton where it's like, oh, okay, we know he's trustworthy and can block, let's put him in there. They're kind of like, there's a reason why they're not just putting them out there right away. Is that...
Yeah, we had a podcast. It was funny. We had a podcast question about like DeQuan Hampton and Isaac Whitney. What if they redshirted and they could have played this year? Like, yeah, but I mean, they just weren't used all that much last year. That could happen. But I think the trust factor's there. That's what, but that's what the question's coming from. That Clay Helton trusted Max Brown more than Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold let the world on fire. Will Joseph Lewis and Tyler Vaughn set the world on fire? I kind of think they will. I feel bad. Tyler Vaughn's, they got that first attempt and he didn't catch it, but he caught one. And he almost got a touchdown on.
I thought we would see him more though.
I would, yeah.
I thought he would be one of the guys in more the rotation.
Yeah, but I think you're going to see some of the younger guys more in this game. It's not ideal where it's Stanford where you're trying to figure out your receiving rotation, but that's kind of where USC is. So.
I mean, we kind of saw a rotation where it was kind of what we expected going into the week. Deontay Burnett was at the top most plays, then Stephen Mitchell, then Jalen Green, then Tyler Vaughn's, then Joseph Lewis, and then you got a couple more that mixed in, like Trayvon Sidney getting one play. I think you'll see that window, and the gap was pretty big. I'm looking at the stats now. Deontay Burnett played 57 offensive stats compared to Joseph Lewis playing 11. I think you'll see that window start to shrink. I think the bottom will start coming up. Some of the guys will get some more reps. Whereas Jalen Green got 41 reps in the first game, and Tyler Vaughn's got 28. Maybe that becomes closer to a 32, 36 or something. I think those windows will start shrinking a little bit with some of those veterans as those younger guys prove themselves. You got to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we talk about all the things those guys can do, but what have they done so far? Tyler Vaughn's dropped a pass, and he caught one pass, couldn't get in the end zone. Trayvon Sidney is the one guy that has shown, hey, put me in, coach, one play, I got it. He got in for one play in the game, and he got a 7-yard catch. So, Joseph Lewis didn't have any opportunities, but that's something that when the chance comes, you got to prove yourself.
I'm fine with keeping Deontay Burnett up there. Like his thing doesn't need to shrink, come down, but everyone else can kind of keep him like closer. So,
especially when you have your second career 100-yard game back to back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Daryl asks, do you see Carr officially becoming second string in the near future?
The craziest part to me is once I looked at some of those plays in the first quarter, that play to Cedric Ware, if he catches that and runs it for a touchdown, it's like an 80-yard touchdown, nobody's talking. And Stephen Carr can still have a good game, but nobody's like, oh, Stephen Carr's automatically up here. It's so crazy how one play could change the whole perception of a player. And Cedric Ware, maybe then he gets a couple more reps later in the game. He didn't play in the second half at all on offense.
Wow.
They went straight to Stephen Carr, so I think you're seeing that anointment real quick with Stephen Carr. I think you'll still see Bo Sedware and Vi in there a little bit because they're going to want to try to keep those guys happy. But I think Stephen Carr's role is only going to increase as he continues to do what he did on that run. That's one thing you can't really teach. He had a one-on-one matchup. The offensive line did their job, gave him a hole. He had a one-on-one matchup with a safety. Can you beat that guy? And then once you beat that guy, can you run away from the defense? And that's exactly what he did.
I mean, you can teach it. It almost looked like, you can, but you can't. Okay, listen to my point. Hold on. Because if you look at the drills they do in practice, you literally could plop Stephen Carr from the trash can drill that Dylan makes them do where they have to, cut. It looked like, I talked to Dylan about it. He said it looked exactly like a practice.
You can improve that.
Okay, but yes. I'm not doubting Stephen Carr's talent. I'm just saying.
You can improve it, but you can't teach that. That's innate. The ability to make people miss is an innate ability.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm just saying, I think Dylan's, what are they called? Drills. Yeah, helped.
Some guys have the jukes, other guys don't.
Okay.
And I don't know about there's no whatever. You talk about the official depth chart, it doesn't really mean. They announced 12 guys on offense, 12 guys on defense. I wouldn't hold my breath to see Ronald Jones, Stephen Carr, and then everyone else Ord. It's probably just going to stay as an Orr thing, but he'll get more and more reps. Like, I wouldn't look at it to be this official thing. The official thing doesn't matter. If you learn one thing from us, that all that stuff does not matter.
Unless they take your name and move it, then it doesn't matter. If it's the same as it previous was, like if they move Ronald Jones to a kick returner randomly on this depth chart, then that is a little bit different. And some of the guys, actually, they flipped a couple, even the Orrs. I think there was a backup tight end situation or something there. They flipped the order of the Orrs. The order of the Orrs. I was like, that's just kind of weird. So there were a couple things. I put it on the board so you can check it out there of what the actual changes were on one of the threads. So when they make a change, that's when it matters. But if it just stays the same, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
They announce the stuff on the video board and all that stuff, and then the guy doesn't start. It just, it's like...
Yeah, even still, they added Ronald Jones to kick return. He did not do anything on special teams this whole week. So...
He's in there.
He's in there. But you'll see. Okay, I was not looking at questions. AT says he wasn't shady last week. Sorry, AT. That's my opinion. Tony said, hey, Ryan.
You were throwing shade, not as much.
Yeah, you weren't shady per se. You're just throwing it. Tony Garcia says, hey, Ryan. This is T-Dog again.
Hey, T-Dog.
Would you say that his potential went wrong?
Oh. It says reconnecting. Okay. I think we're reconnecting.
I don't see anything.
I got my little studio thing. It said disconnected and then reconnecting.
Why?
Let's see. Hold on. Let me pull it up.
Mine's working now.
All right. I think we're back.
Oh.
Sorry, we had a little disconnection, it appears. Sorry about that. So the question was about, is it too early to play Stanford, correct?
Yeah, in the sense that USC gets better as they play games. Not necessarily right now to play Stanford.
Yeah, I think so. For last year, obviously, it was USC that's more of like new coaching staff. The defense wasn't playing well. The offensive line had a lot of mental lapses and busts and all that kind of stuff. And, of course, and the Sam Darnold factor, too. And then they kind of got on a roll. I think now you expect it to be early. If it doesn't matter, that USC should be better now, that the defense should know what they're doing. The offensive line, even though there were some moving parts, all the guys that were starting against Western Michigan have started games before. So, and now you have Sam Darnold. It's his first season opener. You expect it to be in a much different place. That was just kind of like a theory I was working with. That maybe some of the stuff in practice it's not translating, and they just get better as they play in games. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a sign of a great coaching staff if that's actually true. So we'll kind of see how that portrays. But I feel like this is going to be one of those teams that they're going to get better from week 1 to week 2. Usually that's a big jump. Just from what I saw, my gut feeling is it's going to take a pretty big jump forward, and USC is going to end up playing a lot better. But you can't worry about when these games are. I mean, Alabama comes out every opener and they just destroy whoever they play, no matter how good they are, no matter how many 5-star athletes they're facing. So I think USC is in a position where they should be ready for this game. If they're not, that's something different. I mean, they should be, no matter, just the fact that it was the second game of the season. I feel like they should be ready.
I think Stanford's going to be wishing this game was later in the season, too, because then they get those 2 offensive linemen. They have more time. There's some other pieces. Any team that has young players that are playing a lot, they're going to, I wish we had our bigger games later in the season because we're going to develop whatever. The difference with Alabama is, they have so much depth that, a lot of times their guys that are starting brand new have played a bunch the previous season. I think that's one of the reasons why they are so good in those first at the beginning of the year, those kickoff classics and everything, while they dominate teams like Florida State or USC last year. And that's one of the things Nick Saban has done for, I believe, 5 or 6 years now. And it's because they don't have a ton of turnover. They also have a lot of guys that, don't go to the NFL when they have an opportunity and come back. So veteran teams, like to play big games early in the season because they can catch other teams before those younger guys are able to develop a little bit more.
Like Ryan says, stars matter, too.
Stars matter. Like, I love when people are like, see, recruiting doesn't matter. Did you see that block? That guy was a 3-star. I was like, okay, yeah. Did you see Stephen Carr, like what he did? Like, he was a 5-star. That's why he was a 5-star. Like, were you relying on Juju Smith and Adoree Jackson? You know what they were? They were 5-stars. Like, that's what matters. So it's not everyone, but for people to just poo-poo, like, it matters, okay? Recruiting matters. Deal with it.
Moving on, Robert says, did this game the past game remind you slightly of No, sorry, hold on, let me start. This game slightly remind anyone of the foibles of the first 4 games of last season. I think the offense kind of did.
There were some things that were reminiscent. I mean, there were some communication errors and stuff, and it wasn't necessarily the communication errors that you saw last year where they were busting the back end. And I think maybe that's a positive. A lot of people were hard on Jack Jones. Jack Jones had a PI. He's a young player, makes his first start. It happens. He also gave up a couple catches in front of him. There were like 7 or 8 yard gains. I mean, as a DB, I don't think he had a terrible game, and a lot of people were really hard on him after the game. Whereas last year, that might have been he got beat over the top, and it's a 50-yard touchdown or something. That was what was happening early in the year because there were some communication issues there. Whereas the communication issues were just not lining up properly and not getting lined up soon enough. I think those were some of the communication issues they had this year in the opener. So there were some a little bit. And maybe it was just the first game jitters. There's a lot of things that could have contributed to it. I don't think it was as bad as some of the stuff we saw last year, for sure.
I think there were some communication errors on the offensive line, too. I think both sacks looked like guys came free, and they didn't do that. So, and, obviously with the defensive side of the football, like that just looked weird. Like, when this defense was playing well, they weren't thinking, they were attacking, they got better athletes. This looked more like a Justin Wilcox defense, and props to Cal, by the way, because he's that was a really impressive win that they had 9 in the morning all the way on the East Coast. So nice, Cal, my boy Tim DeRuiter, who's the defensive coordinator there. So I covered him when he was at Fresno. He was a cool dude. But so I think there was some of the communication stuff there. I think as long as this defense plays aggressive, they're going to give up some big plays, but you just need to force the action a little bit more. You have to force Stanford to punt the ball sometimes where they're going to score, if it's a methodical drive and they just keep driving it down, time after time, that's one thing. But if you can force a negative play on first down, now it's 2nd and 15, and then you get them to punt, it's like, hey, that's better. You get one of those and they score 2 touchdowns. I'd rather have that than 2 touchdowns and a field goal and they control the clock the whole time. At least you force them to punt sometimes. So I think the communication stuff is fine, but you need to be more aggressive. And I think Clancy Pendergast will be in this game a little bit more.
Yeah, keeping Stanford out 3rd and short will be a big key for USC this weekend.
Yeah. I think the offense reminded me a little bit of September of last year. Just it felt a little forced to me, also in the sense of the use of tight ends. I was curious, so I looked at last season, and they used the tight ends way more as the season progressed as opposed to September. And I don't know how much of that is Daniel Imatorbhebhe not being healthy, which is a lot. But I think when you have a functional tight end position, it helps the offense a lot and puts a little less pressure on the wide receivers. So I think it helps the flow a lot. And how big Daniel's injury is, I think it was underestimated how much that would affect the offense. But that's what I thought.
He also said after the game, he was like, I don't know if he was just joking. He's like, I think they forgot about me a little bit because he only played 2 snaps in the first half.
Right.
Those 2 plays were a Ronald Jones touchdown and I think like a 20-yard gain that he was a decoy for in the middle of the field or something. I mean, when he's on the field, he has a big impact.
Get him on the field. All right. So I think we have about 17 minutes left because we want to try to stop this at 1. We do appreciate all the questions, so keep them coming. We have a bunch more, or how are we doing?
We have some.
Okay.
Rapid fire, though. Don't go on a tangent.
I'll try.
However, this is a question for you. You kind of already alluded to it.
Countdown clock, we're going.
Since you rewatched the game, Shotgun, did you agree with the Jack Jones pass interference call? Personally, I thought it was a really good coverage. Christian asked that.
Oh, no, that was a definite PI.
He had a handful of jersey, it looked like.
Yeah, he grabbed the guy by the back of his nape there. So we'll go to the next question, but I'll come back to that. I have actually a pretty good photo of it I can show since we're live.
Oh.
Okay.
AT asks, is Jay Tufele redshirting this year?
To be determined, I think. I think he's got to show more in practice and then earn his opportunities. And, Clancy hasn't used a ton of defensive linemen. He did rotate more in this game. I know a lot of people were upset about the 3 defensive linemen, but they rotated some more in that game.
It's telling you to be quiet.
Interesting. It shows. I think it shows still working here.
Really? I don't know. Maybe.
Are you? Yeah, I think we're still. I think we're still live.
Oh.
I'm still live.
Well,
Maybe we got some Keeley problems. The technology stuff.
So here's the Jack Jones. I don't know. Can you see it, Ryan, from there?
Yeah, I think you can see it. That's good.
If you can see the handful of jersey he has on the back of the players at the horse collar area.
Yeah, that's all right. Right.
So that was a very good call, actually, by the referees there on that one.
Yeah, and I kind of think Jay Tufele is going to redshirt. I mean, it's still to be determined, but at this point, just seeing the first game rotation, maybe it changes, going forward. I don't see him getting in at this point unless it's like it's garbage time, and then do you want to waste a year of that? So
do you want to Olawale Batiku him?
Right.
41 defensive snaps, and like 6 of them with the first team. It's like those aren't great experience.
Yeah. Could have redshirted, and so that's my gut feeling. Gerard didn't, when we had him on the podcast a couple weeks ago, he didn't seem to think so. Anything can happen, but if I had to bet on it, I would bet that he's going to redshirt.
And you never know with injuries as well. That could play a huge factor. One more thing on the Jack Jones is he was in great position. He put his hand right in the path of the ball. He just didn't need to make that. I think that was that's a learning experience for him. That's a young mistake where that's something that Biggie did a little bit in his time early on when he was playing, is he got handsy when he didn't have to be, even though he was in position.
Ronnie says, I remember seeing Reggie Bush and said, he's going to be something special. He says he sees the same as Stephen Carr. What do you think? Heisman run next year, maybe? Question mark.
Defer to Ryan. I was not here for the Reggie.
Neither was I.
I mean, Reggie's like the most redonkulous back like you see in person, but Stephen Carr does a lot of stuff that you really like in space. I think it's too early. I think it's to be determined, but he really does catch the ball extremely well. I think that's going to be a down the line weapon that you're going to see a lot of. And then, just that 52-yard run that he had and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, don't want to compare people to Reggie, but he's got a lot of skills. He's got a lot of tools. I think he brings a lot to the table, and you're going to see more of Stephen Carr.
No Heisman campaign next year. The year after.
Yeah. I don't think that's it's tough for a sophomore running back. I don't even know if that's ever. Maybe it's happened once.
AJ Peterson, I think.
Did he do it as a sophomore? Okay, yeah.
A redshirt freshman. He wasn't the Heisman. He was a runner-up, I believe.
Okay.
Gerald says, should there be... I'm sorry, I'm laughing because the latter portion of this question. Should there be concerns with Jack Jones' attitude? He caused a penalty last game for extra pushing and shoving, and he also got into it with Immortal Baby. Can't spell his name. I think Immortal Baby, but I didn't see him get into it with Immortal Baby.
I didn't see that either. Maybe that was the scrum at practice that we didn't see. Maybe some Gerald is at practice. But he was a second man into a scrum the other day when they were having some fisticuffs between some players. It's hard to say that a player wasn't at fault for a personal foul penalty like that. But when the receiver put his finger in his eye, basically into his helmet, that's hard not to react to. I think the referee should have done a little bit better job of getting over there and separating them early. But you can't be. Usually, it's the second guy is the one that gets charged with the penalty. Luckily for USC, it was both guys got charged that time.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
And it's IMATORBHEBHE. Boom. Mental baby.
And that guy, that receiver in particular, was actually getting into it with several different players, not just Jack Jones. I mean, Janae Harris one time put his hands up because the guy was trying to kind of bait him into a penalty as well.
That's the interesting thing about being on the field during the game. You get to hear all the
chirping,
the chatter, especially on special teams. There's a lot on kickoff, so
you got to make your impact on your one play when you're in.
I guess so. Ronnie says Stanford recruits to pound the ball down your throat. If we got handled up front last week, how did they prepare for this ground attack? Will we have to break out of nickel and fill the box?
I mean, I think we touched on it before. They're going to use some different packages. Also, I've said this a couple times on social media and on the message board. They were actually, per play, they were actually better in their nickel defense against Western Michigan than their base defense. When they used 3 down linemen, they actually gave up 7.3 yards per play. When they used their nickel, they gave up 4.3, I believe it was. So they're actually 3 yards better. And, you're clamoring for it, and it's because you feel like it's just continually, the drive is continually going. But when you actually look at the numbers, it didn't actually play out that way.
Yeah, but they're definitely gonna have to use more down linemen than they had before, and they'll have some different packages like we talked about before. But it's more about beginning. I don't care how many linemen you have. If you're getting pushed off the line, and USC was, that's going to be the problem. So they gotta be more aggressive, and they gotta be, attacking at that line and make sure that you don't get pushed backward because Stanford's got a great front.
The defensive tackles have to play well.
Yeah.
Jared has an interesting question. Who's the best jump ball receiver now that Darius Rogers is gone? I saw Jalen Green lose that one that led to an interception last week.
I kind of think Tyler Vaughn's is just, he's that's if you want to give a strength, he's a great high pointer of the ball. He's probably a more athletic Darius Rogers. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but if I wanted to like do high pointing stuff, if you're talking about just receivers, I would probably pick him.
I think he goes up and gets the ball the best, as Ryan said. I don't think he has as strong of hands as Darius right now. He's not going to pull the ball away from a DB like Darius did a couple times. But a lot of times, the DB's hand is going to be here, his hand is going to be here. He's going to be up above him because he's got these long, slender arms, and he's got some hops. He gets up.
Michael Pittman, maybe he comes back.
Pittman, I think he could wrestle the ball. He's a little more physical, I would say. But I want to see like a Kerry Angeline. Like he should be. I mean, he's 6'8" or whatever. Like that's got to be a weapon. You got to use that. Like Stanford uses dudes like that as weapons. They throw it up there and no one can get it. Like the guy's too tall. Like you're not putting a 6'7" DB out there. Like there's just no way you're gonna like stop.
I always remember the double or triple overtime game with Andrew Luck. I think it was Levine Toilolo against Trey Madden. And Trey Madden tried to jump ball and it was like, I can't get up there.
Yeah.
Josh says, do you think Stanford is ready for the 1-2 from Jones and Carr?
I talked to like RJ Abadia from the Bootleg, like I said. It's on our podcast. And I think the Stanford secondary is excellent. There's more questions the closer you get to the line of scrimmage. Harrison Phillips is a stud player, but there's not a lot of other guys that you kind of know. I think Stanford always does a really good job of replacing some of the studs that they've had, and they've had a bunch on in that front seven. I think USC can probably have more success in the run game up against that front seven than maybe this really talented secondary that they bring in. So that, to me, that's going to be the key. Like I know everyone's talking about Sam Darnold and all that stuff, and I think it can be more of a run-first sort of team like Clay Helton wanted to be before. And then you use play-action pass and things like that. I think you're going to see a little bit softer as far as the defense goes, running up front than maybe in the secondary.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a switch for Stanford. Usually they're really good up front, but they don't really have a Solomon Thomas this year.
Yeah.
There's just another beast up front. But it's similar to Western Michigan, how you talked about last week, is they were replacing the front of their line, so that would be kind of the weakness. And what happened? USC ran all over them. So that's kind of going to be one of the things you have to take advantage of.
Christian says, do you think some of the taller DBs will get in to mirror their tall receivers / tight ends, or do you not expect much of a difference?
It'd be great to see Jamel Cook in there because he's 6'4". But I mean, I asked Clancy about it specifically. Not that you got like the words he said, just the way he said it didn't sound to me like, oh yeah, Cook's going to be like used. He didn't really want to say a whole lot. He wanted to kind of focus on what's going forward. I think Cook would be great in there, but I don't know if he's going to be in the rotation.
I just don't think they trust him yet.
Yeah.
I think he's still sometimes, since he's switched to cornerback, he struggles and gets beat behind him sometimes. That's the one thing they don't want to happen. I think it's a big trust issue, which is why I don't think Jack Jones changed out of the game at all. I think they wanted to get him as many reps as possible going into an important game this week because those reps are all that extra experience. Does Isaiah Langley get in there? I don't know how much they trust in those backups to put them in there in any particular situation.
For guys like Velus and I guess Jamel, what happens in that disconnect between spring and fall where you're saying their names every practice spring and then fall comes and there's a difference?
One, you have more guys, you have less opportunities to showcase yourself. Just because there's more bodies, so everybody else gets more reps, and also, it just depends on the player, how quickly they're getting certain things because there's much more install throughout the summer and the fall going on. And Jamel Cook, not to badmouth him or anything, but sometimes he was making plays when he was in the wrong spot. One of the players told me previously. Sometimes they can help, but he was still learning so much at that time, and he was just lucky to be in the right place. And he's so athletic, he can make some of those plays, but he's still learning, and especially when you change positions. I think that's part of the reason why he hasn't quite got it yet. I think it's only going to get better and better the more he practices there, and potentially the more if USC can get it up, or he starts working his way into the rotation. That extra experience, I think that's big.
I think a guy like that, though, he did make so many plays, even if he was in the wrong spot. He's a playmaker guy. That's just the kind of dude you want to see out there. That's why you want to at least get him a chance to be on the field. And maybe he makes a mistake, but he might make a couple big plays too. And his length against some of the Stanford receivers, I think, would be a good fit. So we'll see. I think they know that Jack Jones played every single play. I asked him about that. Shotgun, he played 97 plays, more than like anyone's had since you started recording it, right? I mean, no one played that many. Or
no skill players played that many. There were a couple of offensive line, like the offensive lineman in the Penn State game. Damian Mile played like 109 plays. So.
Oh wow, okay. But for skill player to play that much, I think they might try to, sub him out a little bit. And I think Cook is still the guy in line.
Clay actually said that they were going to take him off a couple of the special teams units. So that'll lessen the load for him a little bit. We'll see if there is a change on defense. Clancy said before the season, compared to previous years when he only used 11 or 12 players, he told me that he trusts 15 or 16 guys. We saw some of those defensive linemen. Is there somebody in the secondary? We didn't see too much rotation there. Matt Lowe's played a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll see if there's any corner that gets in this game.
Do you see Clay moving Carr to the receiver position at times if the receivers don't shape up?
I mean, he's so good you could, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, he played a lot of receiver in 7-on-7 and was really good at it. So,
if anything, you see Velus Jones coming in and he would line up at running back. So, I mean, they can do receiver kind of stuff out of the running back position. I would think it'd be more of that. Maybe two back stuff where he's back there with Rojo too, and he slips out and catches a screen or something. I don't know, but yeah, I don't see them, doing that, moving him or whatever.
The really good thing about him is he's so versatile. Like, you could do a two-back set, send him in motion, and then he could line up a receiver and run a route or something. He's a very talented kid.
All right, we got like 5 minutes left. So
we got this. 2 more questions. Do you think Porter will disrupt the backfield of Stanford much? Will we see far less standing around?
Good question.
Porter's got to have a better game. I mean,
yes.
One play he tackled the blocker and the runner ran by him, but he also made he made tackles on 2 of the first 4 plays. So he just has to have a more consistent game. It was kind of an up and down game for him against Western Michigan. Again, maybe first game jitters, who knows? But he's got to have a better game this week.
Yeah, I think the disruption part is important. It's not like, I don't think you're going to see Stanford back there, like 7-step drops and taking forever in the pocket. But I think he can disrupt some of the plays. And Stanford does have, really big receivers. If you're letting these guys go one-on-one with a linebacker or a safety or nickel or whatever, there's going to be mismatches there. So you have to do something in the backfield to kind of disrupt the play, not let it come to fruition and then rely on someone in the secondary making a play on what is most likely a mismatch. So he's going to be really key for me in this one, just to make, it's not that you have to get the sack or make the tackle, but just disrupting things and kind of, breaking up the rhythm a little bit. If Stanford's in rhythm, they'll just keep methodically moving down the field, and he's got to be that guy that kind of breaks that.
You got to get the quarterback off his spot, and I don't think Killer Chris is a great quarterback if you get him off his spot. Make him move in the pocket. I think you'll see him make some mistakes, maybe overthrow, underthrow. Maybe you get some turnovers that way. I think it's, like Ryan said, I think it's huge. Disruption is key to this game as well. I've said a lot of keys this game.
Keys.
People are getting in questions last minute, so we got to get this going. Do you think they will use Velus more on punt and kick return? When he took the ball out of the end zone, I held my breath because he is so fast.
John Baxter likes him. I think they know they almost broke him a couple times, but I think he'll be used more, yeah.
He got tackled by the kicker.
That's true.
And granted, he was looking at a different guy, and if Eric Cromenhook was a little bit faster, he would have got the block on the kicker. That's a touchdown because I don't think the guy wide was going to be able to get to him. He caught up. Granted, Cromenhook did kind of get bumped. I will give him that. He has restarted his acceleration, but he caught up 6 yards in 6 steps. I mean, he was just like immediately on the back of Cromenhook, and then he had to cut off of him one way or the other, and there was a guy falling the other way. The kicker picked the right way. It's kind of like a goalkeeper. Picked the right direction of which way Velus was going to go, and he was able to make a tackle. And good job by the kicker making that tackle. But yeah, I think he's going to have some opportunities. You get him in the free, he's gone. He's gone.
James asked me a question. Did you guys touch on Michael Pittman's health yet? We need him a solid passer in this game. No. Helton said that he will likely take another week. He did, though, yesterday run routes and do cuts with the trainer with just tape on his ankle. The first time we saw him without a boot or a brace. I heard from players, though, that he really wants to get out there. He originally thought he was going to play in the opener. They, of course, shut that down. He's trying to get into the Stanford game, just himself, his mindset, but Clay definitely sounded like he was shutting that down. Yeah. So I know he mentally wants to be there. Physically, not so much.
He was walking pretty well after the game on Saturday. I asked him, what's the potential? He's like, I'm hoping to. And then you see him, he's trying, but
he's
don't
trying.
think it's going to happen. I think
Clay Helton said if he played another position, probably, but because of the skills, he's got a cut and stuff. That's why he's probably going to.
I think he's a week away. I think Pai Young will actually be available this week. I think he got cleared after the game on Saturday.
Okay.
Interesting. Can you give us a weakness or two for each of Stanford's offense and defense?
I think we talked about how the front seven is not quite the same as it normally is. I think they're back four or five, and the secondary is really good on defense. On offense, I don't think their receivers are that threatening.
Yeah.
I mean, previously they had guys like Rector that could really stretch the field. I think Trent Irwin's a really good receiver, but I don't know that he can really stretch the field that much. Whereas the offensive line has got some question marks too. We'll see how much they rotate those guys in, those young guys. Those might be a potential weakness there.
Agree.
Do you see Grimes getting any playing time? He's out for the year, right? His hip?
What?
No, Randall Grimes, he's not out.
No.
Oh, God. For some reason, Randall Grimes and Hunter Echols, they're the same person in my head. I don't know why. So
Really? That's a weird connection.
Same thing happens with Akili Ross and Isaiah Langley. Don't know why. Those you can kind of understand a little bit more.
14-24, yeah.
And they switched because they had, whatever, doesn't matter. But
Randall Grimes, I think T. Martin maybe wants him to play. I think Clay Helton maybe wants him to redshirt. Who's going to win out in that? So far, I think Clay is winning that. If you see injuries or you see the receivers not producing, then Grimes is the guy maybe they bring up and say, hey, we're gonna burn your red shirt after 4 or 5 games, and you go in there and make us proud.
Agree.
Frank Neary says kicking game ? May come down to field goal. Isn't there a stat about how the Stanford game always comes down to like 3 points, 6 points, something?
I think when USC wins, right?
Yeah, lately though, like Stanford's won by a touchdown, and Stanford's made I think 177 straight PATs, and so I think the Stanford kicking game is stronger than USC's right now. It definitely could come down to something like that. So
Chase McGrath was 9 for 10 yesterday. He looked good. So, but consistently, not so much. I think if it came down to a field goal for USC, I would maybe close my eyes.
If it's 4th and 2 on the 27, the 25, you're going for it.
Yeah.
Instead of kicking a 42 or 44 yarder.
I would say that's true. Yes.
Um,
We're like overtime, so any more, and we'll wrap it up.
Last one, we can end it on score predictions.
Ooh.
I didn't even consider this one yet.
I haven't even figured out who I think is going to win in this
My
game.
42-6 prediction last week did not work out so well, so...
If you want to bet, you go with your boy here, because I knew they were going to cover. So the Western Michigan was going to cover. Yeah, so we understand that. I think, 7-point spread seems like a lot to me. I think if this game was played 10 times and you bet Stanford and took the points 10 times, you'd make money. USC anything could happen. I think USC could win by a couple touchdowns. I think Stanford could win by a couple touchdowns. My gut is it's going to be like a close one, like 31-28 USC. So I'll take Stanford in the points, but I kind of think USC wins this one. I feel like they're going to get a lot better from week 1 to week 2, and I think Western Michigan is actually a good team. It would be great if they go out and beat Michigan State on the road this week.
I'm going to go 27-23.
Interesting.
Who?
27-23.
I'm going to go... My initial thought was 17-14 USC, but I'm going to go with 21-14 USC.
Oh, so you think a lower scoring?
Yeah, I think so.
21-14.
I don't know what that's going to be accurate.
When I said 31, that means USC's kicking a field goal and Stanford isn't.
Ooh, okay.
So,
Or maybe they go for 2-3 times.
They could do that. I kind of feel like they'll get a field goal like they're down to like the 5-yard line or something, or like the 7, it's like 4th and goal from the 7, so they kick a field goal. So.
Well, I got 27, so if that's USC, that means they kick 2 field goals.
Ooh,
or they miss an extra point.
Wow. Josh says in all caps, Keely got my type of mindset. Right as he commented 21-14, I thought it, so we were on the same page, Josh.
Nice.
Also, someone was asking who's the fastest between us 3.
Right now?
Shotgun, I would
Ryan.
say. No, I'm slow. I'm not fast.
In college, they told me I ran in slow motion, so.
Yeah, I was like, I'm good the hands-eye coordination stuff. Like, I could hit the ball. Like, Shotgun's a baseball player, too, but, like, I was never fast, so that was not my thing. You played wide receiver in high school, Shotgun, so you have to be fast.
Yeah, you were talking about the glory days of practice. You had 1 touchdown catch, and that was it?
Whoa. You misstated. Every pass I caught was a touchdown.
Okay. Yeah.
And I haven't seen Keely, like, I've seen her on the volleyball court. I don't know. But I have way longer legs
seen
than
me
you.
in beach volleyball, and I feel like I'm running in gel. It's just, beach volleyball is awful.
See, I'm saying you weren't moving, like, super fast around sand. But that's hard. Sand is hard.
Sand is awful. Plus, Hermosa Beach is like...
It's very deep
it's like
sand.
4 inches. It's
right.
ridiculous.
But you could, I'm not saying, like, you could very well be faster than me.
My dad was like a mile runner record person in Georgia, so...
My dad was,
but I didn't get those genes.
My grandfather and my dad were all track people and stuff, and I was, like, slow. I'm, like, taller than everybody, but I was slow, so I don't know what the...
Yeah, that's my deal, too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Sweet. All right. Well, hope you guys... We got nothing else, right?
People are saying thanks.
Hey, no, thank you guys for tuning in. A little bit different production, so we'll mix it up a little bit, and we'll try to set this up at the same time every week. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks to the lovely Shotgun.
So lovely.
The handsome Keely. And your... Just want to be stereotypical, you know? Like, if I say the lovely Keely, that's like stereotypical, right? Like, you can be handsome.
I will never turn down being called lovely. So.
Oh, well, look, the lovely Keely and the handsome Shotgun, or lovely. You guys are both lovely. And I'm just here.
You.
So I hope you guys enjoyed USCfootball.com live on our Facebook page. Make sure you check out the site, USCfootball.com. All of us are putting up tons of content, so there's lots and lots of stuff going on. So,
and also look forward.
Our podcast.
Oh, yes. The podcast coming up. We're actually going to record something right now. So
should be up today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Maybe like a
little bit different type of podcast than what you're used to.
The youths will be taking over.
Yeah. So the millennials. It's the millennial time.
He's not a millennial, but we'll let it slide.
I don't know what I
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.